we have that mindset of like trying to bend the natural world to what we want it to be. Instead, we should be learning to live alongside the community that we find ourselves in, you know, whether that's people or like the wildlife that already is there. You know, alligators and crocodiles are definitely not the monsters sometimes that people think they are. And I've spent time handling under permit and then also being underwater with both of them. It's not that there's no risk to some of that, you know, because they are wild animals, they are powerful. Having spent a lot of time with them and worked with them, you know, there are behavioral cues and things to do and not do when it comes to just living alongside them. There are so many things that we can do to do that safely.
We'll probably go out to the main river though for sure, because that's where most of the action is at. Have you done like a podcast episode thing before?
I've done one podcast before. I've had a couple, like, sometimes I have to like balance what all I do. I've had a couple people reach out to do podcasts. Haven't had time, but I'm excited about this one. Nice to be able to actually get outside and do it too. Oh, nice.
A big part for me, and I feel like of the people that I've had out, they get really excited because it's like, not only is it, I'm going to get a video of this guy, look at him. Not only is it fun to do the podcast, but yeah, it's so cool.
Nice.
It's so pretty.
Yeah.
But yeah, of the people that I've had out, they get excited knowing that like they get to do a podcast and it's not just in a studio and...
Right. This just feels more natural to me because this is where I would be normally anyway.
Exactly.
So.
Well, that's kind of the goal is to have people who, this is kind of like what they do. And it also makes it a little bit more fun to watch. You watch on YouTube, do like the video podcast thing. But go ahead and kind of like introduce yourself and just very briefly like what you do.
So my name is Joseph Ricketts. My full-time job is I'm a crocodilian research biologist. Work with alligators and crocodiles around the state. I'm really passionate about is wildlife photography and videography. So I do a lot of underwater photography and filming. I think I'm probably most known for some of my night stuff. I do a lot of things in Florida Springs at night. Mostly I've been focusing on freshwater photography right now, but I'll go anywhere I can with my camera.
That's awesome. So yeah, you predominantly focus on freshwater. Is that, if you're doing photography and videography, you need to have visibility. So I would assume if you were ever doing like anything saltwater, you're probably down in like more South Florida area. I mean, do you go out there often, or is it mostly like the springs?
So mostly the springs. Yeah, I think it's kind of circumstantial. I'm mostly a freshwater photographer. I've been doing photography since like 2018. I mean, when I was like 12 years old was the first time I picked up a camera and really enjoyed it. But like 2018 was when I was like, I'm gonna do this a little more seriously. Well, I could tell a little bit of like how I got into underwater photography.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the most unique parts of my story. So I mean, like most people, I started out with a GoPro underwater. In college, my friends and I wouldn't really party. We mostly, on spring break, we would go down to Florida to snorkel.
Where did you go to school at? So you're not in Florida?
So I went to school, it was a small school in Northwest Georgia on Lookout Mountain called Covenant College.
Covenant?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So, I actually have friends who went to Covenant.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of people.
It's like a small Christian school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would just come down to Florida and we'd seen like photos and videos of the clear water. One time we made it all the way to the Everglades. And so every spring break we'd just come to Florida and we had GoPros and, nice, cormorant turtle.
Yeah.
Double action.
There's always something on that log right there.
Yeah, that's prime spot. Who wouldn't be?
I got nice, good sun coverage there.
I really fell in love with it and really wanted to get my actual camera underwater, but the cost of like underwater housing and equipment was just like, I have no idea how I will ever be able to pull this off.
Yep.
But then, a few years later, I got a job in Gainesville. Working for the National Ecological Observatory Network. It's kind of a mouthful, but anyway. I was here in Gainesville and I was like, diving in the springs a lot, and I was like, I have to figure this out. I got to get my camera underwater. So I started cruising around on Facebook Marketplace and I found a way to like alter the URL so that you could search like an even wider radius than normal. For underwater housings. So I just started looking and I found one that was made for a camera that was like 20 years older than mine. It was like a dinosaur housing, and it was like a tenth of the cost of what they normally are, and it came with like a dome, not a dome port, but a lens port, strobes, and like everything. And
Dang.
I was like trying to compare. It was like for the Canon D60, not even the 60D, but the D60.
Okay.
And I was using a 6D Mark II at the time. I had to like compare the sizes of the cameras, and they were like within millimeters of each other. So I like took a risk and got it. I ended up using Lego pieces to like alter the housing to fit my camera, but
That's
it worked.
crazy.
And like that was how I got a camera underwater for the first time. And I mean,
That's insane.
I did pretty well with it.
Did the buttons and like, because I know obviously, I guess depending on the housing that you have, like the buttons have to line up and stuff on the back so you can use the functions and
so
stuff.
I could use shutter speed. I had auto ISO on, and then like aperture control, and then I could pull the trigger. I could only like do video or photo. Like I'd have to start out with that.
So you couldn't switch
I couldn't
while you were
switch
underwater.
in the middle of it.
Okay.
And also if I did video, I would have to like be recording the entire time.
Okay. So you couldn't start and stop the recording.
Yeah. So
dang.
Definitely some limitations, but I mean, I still made some photos that won
you
some
got
competitions.
your camera underwater. Yeah. Oh, you made that's so cool.
I like wasn't just like surviving. I was actually doing pretty well, and then it was kind of like, all right, this is not just like nice gator. Yeah. Not just like something I'm gonna be sort of interested in. Like this is a passion, and so I then I got a used housing next, and then recently, upgraded my full kit, and so that was a pretty cool milestone to finally hit.
What do you shoot with now?
So now I'm still using the same old strobes, but yeah, I'm shooting with the Canon R5 and an acclaimed setup.
You'd probably be obviously a really good person to talk to about camera, underwater housing stuff. Like I know nothing about it, but kind of similar. I would love to get into it. Yeah. And the only like housing that I've looked into that is not like an insane amount of money is it's like called sea frogs. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those.
Okay. Then you have like aquatic, right? Or no? What is aquatic?
Yeah, aquatic is one.
Okay, and then you have like Nauticam, and you have
Nauticam is top of the line.
Yeah, I mean, but then
or twice as much as my camera almost.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I would love to get my camera. I mean, I don't have anything super. Like I have I shoot mirrorless Sony, so I have like the Sony A7C because I like to travel. I like to have stuff like lightweight and packable. So that's why I went with like the compact, the C series. Yeah. I really wanted the A7R, I think. I don't remember.
A7CR?
No, not the C.
Not the C.
The A. I think it's just the A7R.
Okay.
It just has like the higher resolution.
Yeah.
But I really wanted that for a while. And then I was like, I'm just going to go with kind of the compact because it does a little bit of both and it shoots 4K and it's a pretty solid.
There's so many little baby cormorants.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Those are in Hinga.
Are those in Hinga babies? Okay.
The ones down low, you can see the white like newborn feathers on them. They're actually like directly below that
there's
female
the
alligator.
there. Mom.
Yeah, so this is Wilma is what we call her. And she has like 2 or 3 little babies, and they're normally on this kind of funky looking tree to the far right, the log at the base of it. They're normally hanging out right over there. And but I don't see them right now. I mean, sometimes they just move around, but that's typically where they're at.
Nice.
Yeah. I feel like obviously doing what you do with the alligator research, crocodilian research, you probably, I mean, do you get excited when you see alligators like every time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah.
Right now, I feel like it changes. My current favorite animal changes, but my current favorite animal is the American crocodile.
Okay.
Because we recently have been doing some work with them. But yeah, I mean, I always get excited. They're such amazing animals.
Yeah. I think when I'm out here on the river and I'm like guiding, there's and you may share a lot of this as well, but I think it's like the fact that they have the potential to take you out, but yeah, they're so like they're such interesting animals and just the species as a whole, like they're just so like resilient and they're how. I mean, they can go.
Ancient.
Just how long just the species has been around for, and they're insane animals, and I don't know. For me, like I love seeing them, and I don't know. I'd probably get closer than I should sometimes, but
they're one of my favorite parts about living in Florida is just knowing you don't have to go that far to see a dinosaur if you want to.
Yeah.
It's pretty special.
So you're saying you're right now you're currently doing stuff with the American crocodile. I guess what does that look like if you're able to talk about that and like the research that you do?
The project that we'd been working on most recently that I got a chance to help out with was project tracking crocodiles in urban contexts in South Florida. A lot of people don't know that Florida has alligators and crocodiles natively in the state. There's only about 2,500 adult crocodiles estimated in the state. When we have like 1.5 million plus alligators in the state, so huge difference. And crocodiles are a federally threatened species. So they are protected, but the population is actually doing well, so it is growing. And then of course everyone knows Florida's population is also growing at an incredibly fast rate. With both those growing populations, there's just anticipation that there will be more human wildlife conflict. And a lot of that stems from just lack of education and people knowing American crocodiles exist here, and then also their behavior, because people see a crocodile in salt water and think, oh, it's a saltwater crocodile, but that species lives in the Indo-Pacific and like Australia and has totally different size, totally different behavior. Ours tend to be very shy and not want anything to do with people. And there's, plenty of ways to safely coexist with them. There's just a big need for, education on that. Our study is looking at how they navigate, because they are present in some pretty surprisingly urban contexts. One of the coolest wildlife experiences I had on that job was, being down in Miami, and right off the Miami skyline, there's a crocodile in this like clear water, and just that contrast of this ancient reptilian creature right beside like the epicenter of like urbanism in Florida, and just such a cool contrast, and that animal's able to like successfully survive there. So we're looking at how do they navigate those environments so that we can help mitigate and like prevent conflict in the future, just so we have a better understanding of their behavior.
That's really cool. So I mean, do you regularly make trips to different parts of the state to do studies and stuff like that?
We set out like 15 tags on 15 different animals, and that's been done. But the past couple of years, we were making quite a few trips around South Florida trying to get those out. But it's a big team of different groups working on the project, so it wasn't all just me, but I was able to help out in a lot of different areas on that, which was really cool.
I feel that there's a lot of, kind of going back to a lack of education that you were mentioning before. I get a lot of people that even just come out here on the river for a tour that they don't even know that there is a difference between a crocodile and an alligator, and that they're completely different species, and that they have different mannerisms and different ways that they hunt, that they like they're not the same animal by any means. And then just you saying that, like you have the American crocodile, and then you have the Nile crocodile, which is very different from the one that you're gonna find in Australia. And I don't know if there's like a quick, easy way to put that, but just the lack of education, and like what would be a good way to learn other than just like going home and Googling a bunch of stuff? I mean, how would you, I guess, have somebody get into that space where they want to maybe learn more?
I mean, there are definitely plenty of online resources. I know the state has a lot, a lot of the universities have plenty of resources, just kind of like on differentiating between the two. And it's one of those things too where even if people don't really know how to tell them apart, when you see a crocodile, you just know it looks different. And I think that's where some of the fear comes, is people see it and they know it's different than an alligator, but they don't really have a context for where to place it. And however much knowledge they have about crocodiles just kind of like automatically fills that gap. And most of what people know about crocodiles are, like Niles.
There's another one.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
A little bigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Nile crocodiles taking down wildebeests, or the saltwater crocodiles Steve Irwin worked with. They're the biggest crocodilians in the world. So, and that's very different than our American crocs here in Florida.
When you hear about these like horror stories of I mean, especially in Florida, because going back to just how we have to how they have to coexist with us, but that like, I mean, you saw the other day that the lady had this 8-foot alligator in her kitchen. Did you see that?
I didn't actually
No?
see that one.
Yeah.
I need to look that up, apparently.
Yeah, it was a video that just went viral probably like 3 or 4 days ago. So like you have situations like that, and then you have like the really sad and unfortunate interactions where like this is years ago, but the little kid at Disney World.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, people are just absolutely terrified by alligators, and like they are apex predators. Like you have to have that respect, and you have to. Especially when it comes to like smaller pets and children, you really have to be on your guard and float,
Right.
especially by a body of water where alligators could be. Talk, because obviously you're in the water a lot with them. I mean, talk a little bit about like your interactions and experience with being in the water with an alligator or crocodile.
It's easy to, like, those incidences, they have that kind of viral capacity to them.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because there is, like, I don't know why, but sometimes, we're kind of drawn to that, like, tragedy. And that relationship with virality is unfortunate. But in reality, though, those incidences are few and far between compared to, I don't know, like, we think people are all nervous about Florida because of alligators, but honestly, the most dangerous thing any of us do any day is get in the car and drive anywhere.
Yep.
And if you are afraid of Florida for any reason, it should be because of like I-4, I-75, and like Highway 90. But yeah, so I think it's easy to kind of blow those things out of proportion. But a lot of times, it is tied to that issue of a lot of people who, are moving to Florida because maybe our climate, that's a whole thing itself when you have climate change and there being less space for people to move forward. But, sometimes those people move here, but if they're not taking the time to learn about the natural communities that already exist here, including learning that alligators and crocodiles are going to be your new neighbors, that's an issue. And that's where I think a lot of that, when you have that lack of education, that's kind of when problems can arise. And I think that was tied to that issue with that kid at Disney. I believe that that family was not from here, and they were out in an area at sunset, which is when alligators are more active, and with a small child, and that's when really, really unfortunate things happen. But if you have that education, and so I think that's a really important thing is for, we sometimes think, we have that mindset of like trying to bend the natural world to what we want it to be. Instead, we should be learning to live alongside the community that we find ourselves in, whether that's people or like the wildlife that already is there. All that to say, alligators and crocodiles are definitely not the monsters sometimes that people think they are. And I've spent time handling under permit and then also being underwater with both of them. I mean, it's not that there's no risk to some of that, because they are wild animals, they are powerful. Having spent a lot of time with them and worked with them, there are behavioral cues and things to do and not do, that can make it, interacting with them, it's such a close place, there's ways to make that safer. When it comes to just living alongside them, there are so many things that we can do to do that safely. And again, we compared to, like America is the only place in the world or the US, where alligators are like the normal crocodilian type, but most of the rest of the world deals with crocodiles. And they're the ones who actually have the challenge, the people that are having to live alongside salties and
it's
and
very, very different.
Or
The American
mugger
alligator,
crocodiles.
the American alligator is like
It's a very like doable, and when it comes to living alongside it. And there are like accidents that do happen, but like it's very, very
tragic.
possible. And there are lots of steps you can take to make living with them safe.
I don't know if you probably have seen the viral video. It's probably 4 or 5 years ago now. With that lady who was on the paddleboard that had that alligator approaching her. Have you seen that video? Yeah,
I did.
And that I know. I mean, I don't know for that situation. I know that there has been another situation where you would have different government organizations that'll come out and start doing like a removal of like larger, potentially dangerous alligators out here, and it's a permanent removal. Yeah, it's really sad because I mean, I don't know. Yeah, just share your thoughts on that if you.
Yeah. So obviously this is just my personal thoughts. I mean, I think it's sad when
He's actually up on the bank. You see him?
Oh yeah, his tail just pulled over that root. That's awesome.
Check him out.
Yeah, I think it's sad when any animal gets removed, and I don't know the full context of
Yeah,
that
yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah.
And that was kind of I mean, I don't think I had been coming out to silver too much when that happened, because I think I was still in grad school at that point.
Okay.
But from that one video I saw, it just kind of looked like it got close, and the person in the video kind of seemed like they overreacted a little bit. But
Yeah.
it's very easy to take animal behavior out of context, especially from an animal like that guy over there. I don't think the camera can see him, but I'll turn. That guy right there. So people that are, afraid of these animals, sometimes their voice tends to be louder than the people who aren't, and that is where I think a lot of issues are. And I think sometimes, people don't account for how much power their voice has. I think I've seen a few instances where, there's people who, don't like how that interaction went and kind of want that animal removed.
Yep.
Their voice gets heard, and, obviously there's a lot of people who aren't happy about it, but if those people would speak up even more so in defense of what happens, sometimes that can kind of change the outcome. And I think it is an uphill battle. Don't give up. I've seen where that can change the outcome of those instances.
Talking about a different situation that did happen on this river is, I guess there were two ladies that were paddleboarding. This is all just what I heard, so I don't actually know what happened, but they said that this alligator cornered them. I don't know how an alligator is cornering you unless you're like
on a river.
Yeah, I mean, there are like little coves, but I mean, unless you were like, you have a turkey sandwich and you're like, hey buddy, and then he's like following you into that corner, like there's no way that alligator is cornering you. Obviously, like they can change by how we interact with them. I mean, whether it's a fed alligator, which then does become dangerous, but I don't think in that situation that I'm referring to that alligator was being fed. I think it was just them feeling maybe slightly uncomfortable because they probably put themselves in a situation that wasn't ideal for them and what they were comfortable with. And so I think it just ended up, I thought this was a gator for a second, but it's just it does kind of look like a small
living log.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an issue with other species as well. Cottonmouths is I'd heard so many times growing up in the South, people do not like venomous snakes, which is really unfortunate because they're super cool. But people saying cottonmouths are super aggressive. And then I had a creek that had a huge population in them behind my house growing up as a kid, and I would just go down and hang out with them. And I could stand 3 feet away and they just sit there and look at me, and no sign of aggression whatsoever.
Would they pose or no? I'm
they
sure
would just
sometimes.
Sit there. They wouldn't even gape at me or anything.
Really?
Yeah, they'd just hang out.
Yeah.
I know sometimes they do that, but
yeah.
And then, I've doing photography with alligators. I've had times where I got pretty close to one, and then it came towards me, and I had to back up, and then it looked like it was rushing towards me, but then at the last second diverted. In that context, most people who don't have as much experience with them, or just wouldn't take the time, or just trying to sensationalize that moment, would be it totally charged me.
Yeah, the thing was coming after me.
But then I thought about the scenario, and I realized it was in a shallow floodplain, and it was trying to get to this culvert to go under a road, and I was in that path, and I didn't realize it, and it was just trying to it was being brave, coming towards me because it just wanted to get past me to go under that culvert to deeper water. And a lot of times, when people say oh, this animal came at me, there's just a lot of context that's missing. And animals animals can do they're living creatures. They can make decisions and do things that we don't expect them to do. So sure, sometimes things do happen, but it's always important to take those things with a grain of salt, because there's more often than not, the behavior is just getting taken out of context.
Exactly. So now kind of getting into your photography and what you said you're more truly passionate about is doing that. Where would you like that to go? If you could have any opportunity present itself to you with doing your underwater photography, where would you want to be with that if you could kind of do that?
So I think what I'm really interested in right now is wildlife filmmaking. I love science, and that's what I'm a wildlife biologist, so that's kind of what I'm academically trained for. But a lot of times sometimes the most important part of scientific work is not always the science itself, but is communicating that science to the general public. And I think having compelling like video and photos is a huge part of that. And so I'm really interested in doing wildlife filmmaking and scientific storytelling, using my passion for science and art to kind of help build bridges between people and wildlife. So I'm kind of starting a couple projects on that. So I've been working out in Florida Springs at night a lot the past like 6 months now, I guess.
Okay.
So I haven't released the image yet, but I'm planning to soon. But I've been trying to. So a lot of times as a photographer, sometimes I think about what is something that, like, how can I take an image of these animals that are photographed a lot, but do it in a unique way?
Yeah.
So I've been trying to get a split shot of manatees underneath the night sky.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah.
So I've done it. Got the shot.
Okay.
Just kind of trying to work through some groups that were helping me get that to release that pretty soon. But so I want to do kind of a film of just that whole process of like capturing that film and like my experiences in the spring at night.
So you're trying to give a story and context to that photo.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But then another project that I'm really excited about that's gonna probably take another year or so, but I'm working on a film that's looking at human crocodile relationships in South Florida. I'm kind of diving into that kind of, just all the like crazy variety of views on crocodiles, because there's people who hate them, people who love them, people who don't care. Yeah. And people who have very different opinions on how they should be managed and protected. That's something I've been working on and I'm really, really excited about. We'll be sharing more about in the next few months.
What has been probably your most memorable like wildlife interaction, I guess, whether it was above or underwater, with your photography?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's so many. So I guess part of that, like when I was working on getting that photo of manatees under the night sky, I spent a lot of time and a lot of really late and long nights in the spring, and was able to see some really cool things, including like alligators, hanging out around manatees, which, is not something and we all know it happens, but like being there when it happens.
Yeah, to observe it is different.
Getting to see that, and then also having it happen at night was just really cool. A big goal of mine this past year was to get video and photos of American crocodiles underwater, which, there's not a lot of them. It's very challenging to find them, but I was able to do that actually last month, kind of as the first step on that film project I've been working on. So that was a huge moment for me. Just there'd been so much work going into finding a good spot where it was possible to get the shot, and then actually happening. Yeah, that was huge. So those are two that stand out recently. But
is the manatee in the night sky.
Yeah.
And then the crocodile.
The crocodile. Yeah.
So walk me through your thought process with, again, you are very trained and experienced in being in and around the water with crocodilian. So I mean, this is definitely not something that anybody should ever do.
Not advice.
Yes, but so walk me through your thought process. So you're in the water and you have an alligator 20 feet away from you, and you're trying to get. I know, looking at a lot of your photos, I don't know if you have different lenses that you take into the water, or if you have one main one that you kind of stick with, but I do know that whether it's
the fisheyes kind of go to.
Well, whether it's the refraction in the water, but either way, in order to get an actual crisp, detailed shot of an alligator, you have to get within a few feet from it.
You have to be, sometimes you have to be pretty close.
So walk me through your thought process on approaching a shot like that.
So I definitely have to say again, disclaimer, it's not advice, and I don't recommend people swim with crocodilians because of the things that can happen. And even though I have a lot of knowledge behind and experience behind me, there still is a risk. There's definitely times where, so the first thing is just looking at the alligator, monitoring its behavior. If it shows any sign of being comfortable with people, that's kind of big red flag.
Okay.
Just because it may have been fed, and fed alligators associate people with food, and it can just kind of be
More
a
likely
bad
to approach
scenario.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like, an exploratory bite from an animal that's that powerful could be bad. Seeing if it's like kind of not showing that it's signs that it's been fed, and then also like just within a certain size. If you look at the bite data in Florida, and there's a surprisingly small amount compared to other everyday hazards we face, but of course they do happen. But most of those tend to be, especially like fatal bites, tend to be from larger individuals.
Okay.
So there's a size limit where it's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna draw the line here.
Yeah.
We're gonna leave this guy be and not attempt to get a photo or anything. That actually happened
Recently.
the other night. I was with a friend and we were in a spring and saw an alligator, and we're like, let's try and get a closer look, and got a little bit closer, still like probably 50 feet away, and we're like, nope, that one's too big. We're gonna let him be.
Yeah. Gotta move on to the next one.
Move on. So, and then like
So
having a dive buddy is also super important.
Yeah,
and
having a dive
people
buddy.
know your plans for going out and coming back, all that.
But okay, so you're in the water, and you've confirmed that it is a safe size that you are comfortable with photographing. Walk me through like your mental approach to that. Again, so you said like whether they are kind of have they're displaying that they're like more comfortable could potentially mean that it's been fed, which would then make him dangerous. But so he's not, doesn't look like he's been fed. He looks like he's still pretty like wild and not interacting with people. Yeah, walk through that.
Yeah. My goal, of course, as like a photographer, is I want to capture like natural behavior, so I don't want to have an impact on the wildlife, I want them to stay like as they are. So trying to get close as possible without like causing them to like, get up and shift their position, but I don't want them to like actively flee from me, ever, because that's never the goal. So just like kind of letting, approach from where they can easily see me, of course, and then just, gentle movements underwater, nothing like fast or anything.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if it's a smaller alligator, you don't want to like mess up their normal movement and routine and whatever they're doing, but also you don't want to come across as a predatory animal to him.
Yeah.
And to where they're gonna flee and you're
So just like a gentle approach, and have my camera out in front of me, which acts kind of almost as a shield,
a barrier,
which is nice. But and then just
does he have a crab? Look at the bowfin down there. He's either got trash or like a
it does
it's either
kind of look like a crab, but I could not tell.
What the heck is that? I've never seen any. He's right here. I can't tell. Maybe you can look through the kayak. He's gonna be timing under you.
Okay.
Look,
It's in like the head of a fish.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
This is the spines for throwing us off.
That's so cool.
Well, good eating for the bowfin.
Yeah.
They are predators. So.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to. It looked like a big chunk of trash in his mouth. I was like, what the heck does he got in his mouth?
Yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's just, I think sometimes, when you get into the water with the camera, it can be easy to just focus on the shot, but it's important to balance, like having a minimal impact on the wildlife around you. And when you do that, your photos and videos turn out a lot better because, the animals are behaving as they normally would.
Photography in general, just the access of really good, high quality videos and photos, people, just because of social media, people kind of just assume that like, oh, anybody can do that, or it's not hard to do. Where, if you have a photo next to the crocodile, that like you're focused on your equipment, your settings on your equipment, you're focused on the safety of yourself, you're focused on the safety of the wildlife, you're focusing on trying not to like disturb them. So it's way more in depth than just hopping in the water. Whether it's a crocodilian or another animal, a manatee that obviously you're not as worried about being in the water with.
Yeah.
There's a lot more that goes into it than people think.
Yeah.
And it's much deeper.
Not something I recommend without lots and lots and lots of experience.
Exactly. One more question before we get to the close here. So
okay.
So you're saying lots and lots of experience. What is your background experience? So other than just like sitting in a classroom and learning about it, I mean, that can't be the only experience that you've had. I mean, you don't just go from reading a book and then you jump in the water with an alligator and now you know how to interact.
Right.
And so how, like, what experience do you have and like what?
I mean, I have my undergrad degree is in environmental biology. I also have a master's in biology as well. And then through all of that, you know, I've had a lot of different experiences working with wildlife. Had an internship in Costa Rica and
That's cool.
got to work with, it was like pretty diverse internship. You know, I haven't just worked with crocodilians. I've always been interested in reptiles and amphibians.
Okay.
In grad school, I did surveys for reptiles and amphibians on the Gulf Coast, on the Gulf Coast National Seashore, kind of partnered between my university and National Park Service. I also have done a lot of work, I did a lot of volunteer stuff locally in Gainesville, the greater Gainesville area with the turtle surveys.
Okay.
So, you know, snorkeling and capturing all the different freshwater turtle species, including, you know, larger snapping turtles as well.
Yeah.
And then I also volunteered with some biologists up in the Panhandle, doing amphibian surveys and then also snake capture and release surveys as well.
Nice.
And there's more, but that's all I can think of at the moment.
I got you.
But yeah, so between, you know, all those experiences and then my academic background, that's kind of where I ended up in my current position, and then have through that position gotten a lot more experience with crocodilians. But I've also been, you know, I've been doing a ton of like snorkeling, diving in Florida Springs for the past, like I think 5 years is kind of when I've really been focusing on it. But yeah, and not just the springs, but you know, a lot of blackwater rivers in Florida and stuff outside the state as well.
I haven't been brave enough to start venturing out into. I mean,
like
like
blackwater is scary.
I'm fine with like paddling it, but like getting in the water to me, I mean, I'll take a dip, but like I'm not like, oh, let me throw on a wetsuit and like swim around for a little bit. Like that's. For me, I haven't gotten to that level of crazy yet, but I'll paddle them. I'm not a fan of getting
just
in for
3 feet visibility and then like blackness surrounding you.
Yeah. So
it's I mean, different. I love it, but it's definitely scary.
Yeah.
It's like my heart's beating so fast.
Yeah.
But
does it ever get easier? Like,
it does get a little easier, but and having someone with you. So one of my friends, Bill Hawthorne.
Yeah, I actually know. Yeah, he does
see Bill
stuff out here
time.
with turtles. Yeah.
He was working on photographing alligator snapping turtles, and that was where we were doing some stuff in the Swanee, and that was crazy because you dive down like 15 feet, and it's like
black.
Pitch black, but also you can still kind of see like a glowing.
Yeah,
you can see like a glowing like 3 feet in front of you, but then like all of a sudden you come up on this like 100-pound like monster turtle, and man, that was a awesome experience, but
That's
that
cool.
was.
It's
scary though.
Yeah, I haven't met Bill, but I have met him in passing out here, but I haven't like officially sat down and like had a conversation with him.
Yeah.
But he seems like a really cool guy.
Yeah, he is. He's also a great photographer as well.
Yeah. To wrap it up, how can people find you?
Yeah.
With different like social channels that you are on.
Yeah. So I'm most active right now on Instagram. I'm starting to try and do some more longer form content on YouTube.
Okay.
And then I have a TikTok, but I'm kind of like, since I'm mostly shooting with Instagram in mind, like TikTok has not been
the platforms are very different.
One,
you have to.
But I'm on all three, so
okay.
Whichever one you're most active on.
What
feel
and
free
how?
To follow me on.
What do people?
Oh yeah, Joseph Ricketts photo on all of them.
Okay. Joseph Ricketts photo. Got it.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming out, Joseph.
Yeah, of course,
I
Josh.
appreciate it. It was awesome hanging out and getting to learn a little bit about your story. So thank you so much.
For having me.
Cool. Well, have a good one.
All right.